Every common drug explained. Caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant, which means it speeds up your brain and nervous system. It is found in coffee, tea, soda, energy drinks, and pretty much anything people drink when they say, "Don't talk to me yet." Even though people say caffeine gives energy, that is not exactly what it does. What it really does is block tiredness, not create power like a battery. Inside your brain, there is a chemical called adenosine. Adenosine builds up during the day and tells your brain, "You are tired, please rest." When you drink caffeine, it sneaks into the brain and blocks adenosine from working. Your brain doesn't stop being tired, it just stops getting the message. It's like putting tape over a low fuel warning light and pretending the tank is full. Because adenosine is blocked, your brain cells start firing faster. Your heart beats a little stronger. Blood vessels tighten. This makes you feel more alert, more focused, and more confident. About 20 to 30 minutes after drinking caffeine, it reaches its peak effect. This is when people feel sharp, productive, and ready to answer emails they were avoiding. This feeling is not happiness or excitement. It is simply your brain running faster. As your body breaks caffeine down, adenosine comes rushing back all at once. This is the crash. Focus fades, mood drops. You may feel shaky, irritable, or suddenly very aware that you need another coffee. Over time, your brain adjusts by making more adenosine receptors. This means you need more caffeine just to feel normal, not energized. If someone stops caffeine suddenly, withdrawal can happen. This includes headaches, fatigue, brain fog, and trouble concentrating. The brain has learned to rely on caffeine to block tiredness, and without it, exhaustion shows up loud and proud. Caffeine is not extremely dangerous, but it is mildly addictive and very good at hiding that fact behind mugs and morning routines. In short, caffeine does not give you energy. It borrows alertness from the future, then demands repayment later, usually right when you were starting to feel productive. Nicotine. Nicotine is a fast-acting stimulant found in cigarettes, vapes, cigars, and other tobacco products. It is the chemical that causes addiction, not the smoke itself. When nicotine enters the body through inhalation, it reaches the brain in under 10 seconds, which is faster than most drugs. That speed is a big reason it is so hard to quit. Once nicotine reaches the brain, it triggers the release of dopamine, a chemical linked to pleasure, focus, and motivation. Dopamine is what your brain releases when you eat food, win a game, or feel rewarded. Nicotine creates a short, artificial spike of this chemical. This is why the onset feels calming, focusing, and slightly uplifting. Stress feels lower, thoughts feel clearer, and emotions feel easier to manage. At the same time, nicotine slightly increases heart rate and blood pressure. The body becomes more alert, even though many users describe the feeling as relaxing. This is a trick. Nicotine does not relax the body. It removes withdrawal symptoms from the last dose. The calm feeling is relief, not relaxation. The peak effect of nicotine lasts only a few minutes. As dopamine levels fall, the brain quickly enters a mild withdrawal state. This creates irritability, restlessness, and a strong urge for another hit. Each use briefly fixes the discomfort caused by the previous one. This creates a tight cycle where the brain learns that normal feelings only exist between cravings. Over time, the brain reduces its natural dopamine production. Without nicotine, everything feels dull and flat. Concentration drops, mood worsens. This makes quitting feel emotionally difficult, not just physically uncomfortable. The brain has been trained to believe nicotine is required for focus and calm. Physically, nicotine damages blood vessels, increases the risk of heart disease, and strains the lungs. Mentally, it builds dependency by teaching the brain that stress relief comes from an external chemical. Nicotine doesn't solve stress. It postpones it, then returns it with interest. Alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant, which means it slows down the brain and nervous system. Even though people drink it to feel excited or social, alcohol actually works by reducing control, not adding energy. It is found in beer, wine, and spirits, and it affects nearly every part of the brain at the same time, which is why its effects feel so broad. Once alcohol enters the bloodstream, it starts interfering with brain communication. It boosts a calming chemical called GABA, which slows brain activity, and blocks glutamate, which normally helps with thinking and memory. This combination makes the brain quieter and less careful. That is why the onset feels warm, relaxing, and confidence boosting. Worries fade, shyness shrinks. Everyone suddenly seems funnier than they really are. As drinking continues, alcohol reaches its peak effect. Judgment weakens, coordination drops, reaction time slows. The brain areas that control decision making go offline first, which is why people feel confident while making bad choices. You may feel fine, but your brain is running on delay mode while insisting everything is under control. As alcohol levels fall, the come down begins. The calming chemicals drop, but the brain overreacts by becoming more active than normal. This causes anxiety, irritability, and poor sleep. The next morning, dehydration and chemical imbalance lead to headaches, nausea, and brain fog. This is the hangover, which is your brain loudly complaining about how it was treated. With frequent use, the brain adapts by reducing its natural calming ability. This means you need more alcohol to relax, and without it, stress feels stronger than before. Alcohol can become something used not for fun, but to feel normal. Over time, it damages the liver, heart, and brain, and weakens impulse control. Alcohol feels social and harmless because it is familiar, but it is one of the few drugs that removes your ability to notice how impaired you are. It slows your brain while convincing you that you are doing great, which is a very confident lie. Cannabis, marijuana. Cannabis is a psychoactive drug made from the marijuana plant. It is usually smoked, vaped, or eaten as food called edibles. The main chemical that causes the high is THC, which affects a brain system called the endocannabinoid system. This system helps control mood, memory, appetite, and how time feels. When THC enters the bloodstream, it travels to the brain and attaches to receptors that normally receive a natural calming chemical called anandamide. Anandamide helps you feel relaxed and balanced. THC copies this signal but turns the volume way up. This is why the onset feels calm, funny, and dreamy. Time slows down. Sounds feel richer. Thoughts wander. At the peak, cannabis changes perception. Colors seem brighter. Music feels deeper. Simple ideas can feel extremely important. Some people feel creative and relaxed, while others feel anxious or paranoid. This depends on dose, mindset, and environment. Cannabis does not choose the mood. It amplifies whatever is already there. As the come down begins, thinking slows and memory becomes fuzzy. Reaction time drops. Motivation can fade. For some people, this feels gentle and sleepy. For others, it feels like mental fog that lasts into the next day. Regular use can dull short-term memory and reduce motivation because the brain learns to rely on THC for relaxation. Cannabis is usually psychologically addictive, not physically. This means quitting does not cause severe physical pain, but boredom, irritability, and poor sleep can appear. It is often called harmless, but frequent use quietly retrains the brain to relax only with help. Cocaine. Cocaine is a powerful stimulant made from coca leaves. It is usually snorted as a white powder but can also be smoked or injected. Cocaine works by blocking the brain from reabsorbing dopamine, the chemical linked to pleasure, motivation, and reward. When cocaine hits the brain, dopamine levels spike fast. This causes an intense onset of energy, confidence, and euphoria. The heart races. The mind feels sharp. Everything feels exciting and important. The brain is flooded with reward signals all at once. The peak is short and intense. Thoughts race. Confidence turns into overconfidence. But the brain burns through its dopamine supply very quickly. When levels crash, the come down hits hard. Mood drops. Anxiety rises. Exhaustion sets in. The brain feels empty and restless. Cocaine is highly addictive because the brain quickly connects it with pleasure and control. Each use trains the brain to want more just to feel normal. Over time, it damages the heart, blood vessels, and brain chemistry. Joy without the drug becomes harder to feel. MDMA, ecstasy, Molly. MDMA is a synthetic stimulant and hallucinogen. It is usually taken as a pill or capsule. MDMA causes a massive release of serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, chemicals responsible for happiness, pleasure, and emotional connection. The onset brings warmth, openness, and strong emotional connection. Music feels powerful. Touch feels intense. People feel deeply bonded to others. At the peak, serotonin levels are extremely high, creating feelings of love, empathy, and euphoria. The problem is that MDMA empties the brain's serotonin supply very fast. When the drug wears off, serotonin drops sharply. The come down brings sadness, emptiness, and exhaustion. Frequent use damages serotonin-producing neurons, making natural happiness harder to feel. MDMA can also cause overheating and dehydration. It feels like connection in a pill, but the brain pays for that feeling afterward. LSD. LSD is a hallucinogen, which means it changes how the brain interprets reality instead of just speeding it up or slowing it down. It is usually taken on tiny paper tabs placed on the tongue. The amount used is extremely small, measured in millionths of a gram, which is wild considering how massive the effects can be. This drug doesn't push the brain, it rearranges the control panel. Once LSD enters the body, it attaches to serotonin receptors, especially one called 5-HT2A. Serotonin helps regulate mood, perception, and meaning. When LSD interferes with this system, the brain stops filtering information normally. The onset begins with subtle changes. Colors brighten, patterns start moving, and ordinary objects suddenly feel very interesting, like your wall just got promoted to art. At the peak, which can last many hours, the brain's sense of identity weakens. The part of your brain that says, "This is me," quiets down. This is called ego dissolution. Thoughts, sounds, and emotions blend together. Time stops behaving properly. 5 minutes can feel like an hour, or an hour can feel like 5 minutes. Music doesn't just play, it feels like it's happening inside you. Emotion becomes intense and physical. Happiness can feel huge. Fear can feel overwhelming. LSD does not create emotions. It removes the brain's safety rails, letting everything hit at full force. This is why mindset and environment matter so much. The same dose can feel magical one day and terrifying another, like the same roller coaster, but your brain forgot where the seatbelt is. The come down is slow and gentle. Reality rebuilds itself piece by piece. People often feel reflective, emotionally tired, or thoughtful. LSD is not physically addictive, but it is mentally powerful. It can cause anxiety, flashbacks, or confusion long after the drug is gone. LSD opens doors in the brain, but sometimes it forgets to label which ones were exits. Ketamine. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic, meaning it separates awareness from sensation. It was originally designed for surgery, which explains why it makes people feel like their body is optional. Today, it is also used medically in small doses to treat depression. While recreational use aims for the strange, floating feeling it produces, ketamine works by blocking glutamate, a chemical that helps the brain process sensory information and stay aware of reality. When glutamate is blocked, the brain loses its normal connection between thoughts, senses, and the body. The onset comes quickly. The world feels distant, muffled, and dreamlike, like reality just switched to airplane mode. At the peak, people may feel disconnected from their body or like they are watching themselves from the outside. Some call this the K-hole, which sounds cozy until you realize it means my body is here, but I am not. Time stops making sense. Movement feels strange or impossible. For some people, this feels peaceful. For others, it feels confusing or scary. As the come down begins, awareness slowly returns. Vision sharpens. Thoughts reconnect. The world still feels foggy for a while, like your brain is rebooting and loading files one at a time. Ketamine is not classically addictive, but tolerance builds fast, meaning users need more to feel the same effect. Heavy or repeated use can damage memory, cause bladder problems, and create emotional numbness. Ketamine can disconnect you from pain, but it can also disconnect you from meaning. It's a drug that teaches the brain how to leave and sometimes forgets how to fully come back. Opioids. Opioids are powerful painkillers made from the opium poppy or created in labs. Medical opioids include morphine and oxycodone, while street opioids include heroin and fentanyl. No matter the source, they all work the same way. They attach to opioid receptors in the brain and body. When opioids bind to these receptors, pain signals are blocked and pleasure signals are amplified. The onset brings warmth, comfort, and deep relief. Muscles relax, stress disappears. Everything feels safe, quiet, and distant. It is not excitement. It is the feeling of being wrapped in the world's softest blanket and told nothing matters right now. At the peak, breathing slows, heart rate drops, and awareness fades. This is where danger lives. Too much opioid activity can slow breathing so much that the body forgets to keep itself alive. This is why overdoses are so common and so deadly. The come down is severe. When the drug leaves, the brain rebounds hard. Pain, anxiety, nausea, sweating, insomnia, and intense craving appear. This is withdrawal, and it feels like the opposite of comfort. The brain has learned that opioids equal safety, so without them, everything feels wrong. Opioids are among the most addictive substances known because they hijack the brain's survival system. They teach the brain that the drug is as important as food or air. The warmth opioids give at the beginning is the same warmth they slowly take away from everything else in life. Methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is a powerful stimulant that floods the brain with dopamine and adrenaline at extreme levels. It can be smoked, snorted, swallowed, or injected. And it hits fast, very fast. The onset feels like flipping every switch in the brain to maximum. Energy explodes. Confidence skyrockets. Focus locks in. Sleep suddenly feels unnecessary, like an optional feature you forgot you had. Thoughts race. Talking speeds up. Everything feels urgent and important, including things that absolutely are not. At the peak, motivation turns into obsession. People may clean nonstop, talk endlessly, or chase goals with tunnel vision. It feels like control, but the brain is actually burning through its entire dopamine supply at once. This is like spending your whole paycheck in one afternoon and calling it financial freedom. The come down is brutal. Dopamine crashes, energy vanishes, depression, paranoia, and exhaustion hit hard. The brain feels empty, flat, and slow. This crash can last days. Meth is extremely addictive because each use damages the brain's ability to feel pleasure naturally. Over time, meth causes severe weight loss, memory problems, hallucinations, and emotional instability. It gives energy that feels limitless, but it is stolen directly from your future self with interest. Psilocybin magic mushrooms. Psilocybin is a hallucinogen found in certain mushrooms. When eaten, the body converts it into psilocin, which interacts with serotonin receptors in the brain. This changes how perception, emotion, and meaning are processed. The onset usually begins within 30 to 60 minutes. Colors brighten, patterns move, thoughts become flexible. Laughter comes easily, sometimes for reasons that make sense only to the mushrooms. The brain becomes more open and less controlled. At the peak, perception can fully transform. Time stretches, emotions deepen. People may feel connected to nature, memories, or ideas in powerful ways. Some experience insight or clarity, others experience confusion or fear. Mushrooms do not create a mood. They turn up the volume on whatever is already there. As the come down begins, the world slowly returns to normal. Thoughts settle, emotions soften. Many people feel calm or reflective afterward, while others feel mentally tired. Psilocybin is not physically addictive, but it is psychologically intense. In the right setting, it can help people see patterns differently. In the wrong setting, it can cause panic or anxiety. Mushrooms don't show you something new, they show you what your mind was already carrying, just without the filter. Drugs don't change who you are, they change how your brain works, often in ways you don't notice until later. Understanding the effects gives you control instead of letting chemicals make the decisions for you. If this breakdown helped you, subscribe for more clear explanations that make complex topics easy to understand.